Why do critics hate everything that's actually fun? Seriously. You trust a snob who calls a movie scientifically inaccurate while you're just trying to enjoy a cold beer and some exploding skyscrapers. Today we're exposing 13 disaster movies that got shredded by reviewers but found redemption in the only court that matters, the audience. These films didn't just survive their bad reviews. They thrived on streaming. Number 13. Twister, 1996. Picture this. You're watching a tornado tear across Oklahoma. The wind is screaming, debris is flying, and then a cow, a literal cow, floats across the screen like it's taking a casual afternoon stroll. Helen Hunt looks at it and says, "Cow. That's not a mistake. That's poetry." Twister arrived in 1996 with a 66% critic score on Rotten Tomatoes. The reviewers called it dumb. They called it shallow. They said the characters were cartoonish, but audiences gave it a 92% and made it the second highest grossing film of the year behind Independence Day. Why? Because Twister understands something that critics don't. Disaster movies don't need complex drama. They need heart. They need chaos. And they need a ragtag team of storm chasers led by Bill Paxton and a young Philip Seymour Hoffman screaming, "The suck zone." Twister gave us iconic imagery that has lived for nearly 3 decades. That flying cow still makes people laugh. The F5 tornado at the end still makes people hold their breath. And the chemistry between Hunt and Paxton? Electric. Twister wasn't a critical darling. It was an audience obsession. And that's way more valuable. Number 12, The Day After Tomorrow, 2004. Here's a controversial statement. Climate change movies don't have to be boring documentaries. Roland Emmerich understood this in 2004 when he unleashed The Day After Tomorrow. Critics destroyed it. They called the script cheesy. They laughed at the idea of a superstorm freezing the entire northern hemisphere in a matter of days. The movie holds a pathetic 45% on Rotten Tomatoes from critics. But audiences? They gave it a 74% and turned it into a massive global hit. Why does this movie work? Because it gives people what they want. Giant waves crashing into New York, wolves escaping the zoo and hunting humans through a frozen library, Dennis Quaid walking across a snow-covered wasteland to save his son. The film is not subtle. It's not trying to be. It's a disaster opera. And here's the thing that critics missed. The Day After Tomorrow became more relevant over time. As real climate disasters intensified, audiences started watching this movie differently. It went from silly fantasy to terrifying prophecy. The frozen Statue of Liberty shot is now an icon of pop culture. The film lives on cable TV where it's played hundreds of times. Each viewing brings new fans. The critics moved on. The audience never did. Number 11, Poseidon, 2006. Let me ask you something. Do you really need deep character development when a rogue wave just flipped an entire cruise ship? Poseidon crashed into theaters in 2006 as a remake of the 1972 classic The Poseidon Adventure. Critics were ruthless. They called it a pale imitation. They said the script was lacking. They gave it a miserable 33% on Rotten Tomatoes. The film barely made back its budget. It was labeled a flop. But here's what happened after the dust settled. People discovered Poseidon on DVD and streaming, and they realized something surprising. This movie is a relentless adrenaline machine. Director Wolfgang Petersen, the man behind Das Boot, didn't waste time with boring backstory. The wave hits in the first 15 minutes, then it's 90 minutes of pure survival. Kurt Russell leads a small group of passengers crawling through an upside-down ship. Water is rushing in. Fires are breaking out. Explosions are everywhere. The special effects are genuinely impressive. The sinking sequence is claustrophobic and terrifying. And that moment when the chandelier falls through the grand staircase? Genuinely tense. Critics wanted another thoughtful drama. Audiences wanted a fast-paced disaster thrill ride. Eventually, the audience got what they wanted. Poseidon found its fans. It's not a masterpiece. It's a workout for your heart rate. Number 10, Volcano, 1997. What if I told you that a movie about a volcano erupting in the middle of Los Angeles is actually more fun than it has any right to be? Volcano hit theaters in 1997 alongside Dante's Peak. Critics preferred the more realistic Volcano movie. They trashed Volcano for being scientifically absurd. Lava doesn't flow down Wilshire Boulevard. You can't stop molten rock with concrete barriers. The film got a 54% critics score. It was considered the lesser of the two Volcano films. But audiences disagreed. They gave Volcano a higher audience score than Dante's Peak. Why? Because Volcano understands entertainment. Tommy Lee Jones plays the head of Los Angeles Office of Emergency Management. He's grumpy, he's determined, and he has to save a city that's literally melting. The movie opens with a great slow-burn mystery, strange occurrences, dead pigeons, boiling asphalt. Then the La Brea tar pits erupt and everything goes insane. A subway train gets flooded with lava. A doctor has to amputate her own arm to survive. A firefighter sacrifices himself to save a stranger. And the film weirdly tries to solve racism along the way. It's messy. It's ridiculous. It's completely wonderful. Volcano has become a beloved artifact of 90s disaster cheese. Every time it airs on TV, people watch it. They laugh. They cringe. They love it. The critics have faded away. The volcano remains. Number 9. Pompeii, 2014. Here's a hot take for your next movie night. A disaster movie doesn't need a perfect plot when it has a volcano wiping out an entire ancient civilization. Pompeii arrived in 2014 with Game of Thrones star Kit Harington as a gladiator seeking revenge. Critics eviscerated it. They called the acting uninspired. They said the romance was wooden. The film holds a pathetic 27% on Rotten Tomatoes. It barely made $23 million domestically against a $100 million budget. Total disaster. But then something interesting happened. Streaming audiences discovered Pompeii, and they realized that the first hour is forgettable, but the last 40 minutes are absolutely spectacular. When Mount Vesuvius erupts, the movie transforms. Rocks and ash rain down on ancient Rome. Lava flows through the streets. The Colosseum gets destroyed. Horses run wild. Ships are tossed by tsunami waves. And the special effects are genuinely gorgeous. Director Paul W.S. Anderson used practical effects mixed with CGI to create a fiery hellscape that looks better than most modern disaster movies. Audiences started recommending Pompeii not for the gladiator fights, but for the destruction. It's a change of pace from modern skyscrapers getting destroyed. Watching a historical city crumble feels fresh. The movie found its audience on Netflix and Amazon. People skip the boring parts. They watch the eruption on repeat. And that's enough. Number 8, 2012, 2009. You know a movie is confident when it kills billions of people on screen and still expects you to have a good time. Roland Emmerich's 2012 was based on the fake Mayan calendar prophecy that the world would end that year. Critics called it cheesy. They called it overlong. They gave it a 39% Rotten Tomatoes score. But audiences made it a billion-dollar hit. Yes, $1 billion. Why? Because 2012 is the most disaster movie of all time. It throws everything at the screen. Earthquakes crack California into the ocean. Yellowstone erupts as a supervolcano. A tsunami the size of Mount Everest carries an aircraft carrier into the White House. The world literally crumbles while John Cusack drives a limousine through the chaos. He outruns lava. He dodges falling skyscrapers. He flies a plane through collapsing buildings. It's absurd. It's impossible. It's glorious. Critics complained about the lack of scientific accuracy. Audiences didn't care. They wanted to see Los Angeles slide into the sea. They wanted to see the Sistine Chapel crack in half. They wanted 2 hours of non-stop destruction with a side of ridiculous family drama. 2012 delivered all of that. And here's the secret. The movie knows exactly what it is. It's not trying to be Deep Impact. It's trying to be a roller coaster. And roller coasters don't need deep meaning. They just need to go fast. 2012 goes very, very fast. Number 7. San Andreas, 2015. Let me paint you a picture. Dwayne Johnson, a helicopter. The entire California coastline falling into the Pacific Ocean. What more do you need? San Andreas hit theaters in 2015 with a critic score of 48% on Rotten Tomatoes. The reviewers said it was dumb. They said the dialogue was cliché. They said the science was laughable. Then audiences gave it an A cinema score. They pushed the film to a $53 million opening weekend. They turned it into a $474 million global hit. Why the disconnect? Because audiences understand something that critics refuse to accept. Sometimes you just want to watch The Rock fight an earthquake. Not literally fight it, but brave every possible obstacle to save his daughter, played by Alexandra Daddario. The movie gives you exactly what you expect. Massive skyscrapers collapsing, tsunamis flooding San Francisco, a cargo ship surfing through a wave, and Johnson doing what he does best, being the world's most jacked rescue pilot. The script is serviceable. The villain is a fault line. The hero is a helicopter dad with biceps the size of small cars, and that's perfectly fine. San Andreas became a streaming monster after its theatrical run. People put it on for background noise, then they get sucked into the destruction. The visual effects hold up remarkably well. The tension is real even when the science is fake. And there's something deeply satisfying about watching a man punch his way through an apocalypse. San Andreas didn't win awards. It won audiences. Number 6. Greenland, 2020. Here's a rare thing. A Gerard Butler disaster movie that's actually deeply upsetting. Greenland was released straight to VOD during the pandemic in 2020. Critics gave it a surprisingly solid 77%. But the real story is how audiences embraced this film on streaming. It became one of the most watched movies on Amazon and HBO Max. People couldn't stop talking about it. Why? Because Greenland does something different. Most disaster movies are fun. Greenland is terrifying. It's about a comet that's going to wipe out all life on Earth. Not maybe. Definitely. Gerard Butler plays a father trying to get his family to a shelter in Greenland before impact. And the movie focuses on the worst part of any disaster. Not the destruction, the human panic. Early fragments of the comet rain down on cities. But the real horror comes from watching people turn on each other. Families are separated. Neighbors betray neighbors. Desperate crowds storm military bases. And Butler's character fails repeatedly. He loses his son. He nearly loses his wife. He makes wrong decisions. The film has moments of destruction, but they're not the point. The point is parental dread. The point is the slim chance of survival. The point is watching humanity collapse from the inside. Audiences loved Greenland because it felt real. It wasn't a cartoon. It wasn't a comedy. It was a nightmare that could actually happen. And somehow, Gerard Butler made us feel every moment of it. Number 5. Dante's Peak, 1997. Raise your hand if you remember the scene where the grandmother jumps into boiling acid water to push a boat to shore. Yeah, that's Dante's Peak, the less flashy of the two 1997 volcano movies. Critics gave it a brutal 28% on Rotten Tomatoes. They called it slow. They called it boring. They preferred Volcano's city-smashing chaos. But here's the thing. Dante's Peak is actually the better movie. It's more grounded, more realistic, more terrifying. Pierce Brosnan plays a volcanologist who realizes that the dormant volcano next to a small Washington town is about to erupt. No one believes him. Then the mountain explodes, and the movie shows you what real volcanic destruction looks like. Not lava flowing dramatically, but pyroclastic flows that incinerate everything in their path. Ash that chokes the air, a lake that turns into acid, a forest that disappears in seconds. The special effects are practical and physical. They hold up better than most CGI, and the human drama is genuinely moving. Linda Hamilton plays a local mayor who has to evacuate her family. The grandmother character sacrifices herself in one of the most heartbreaking disaster movie deaths ever filmed. Dante's Peak has aged like fine wine. Audiences discovered it on cable and streaming. They realized the critics were wrong. This movie is tense, it's smart, it's devastating. And it proves that realism can be just as exciting as explosions. Number 4, Moonfall, 2022. Some movies whisper their madness. Moonfall grabs the moon, throws it at Earth, and dares you to complain about science. Roland Emmerich returned to full disaster movie insanity in 2022 with a premise so ridiculous it almost sounds like a parody. The moon has been knocked out of orbit and is crashing toward the planet. Critics pounced immediately. They called it absurd, overstuffed, impossible, and too silly to take seriously. But that is exactly why audiences had more fun with it. Halle Berry plays a NASA executive, Patrick Wilson plays a disgraced astronaut, and John Bradley brings the conspiracy theory chaos as the one guy who might actually be right. The movie gives you tidal destruction, gravity going insane, cities being crushed, and a secret inside the moon that turns the whole thing into sci-fi madness. Is it realistic? Absolutely not. Is it subtle? Not for 1 second. But Moonfall understands the guilty pleasure formula. Big stars, bigger destruction, and a story that refuses to slow down even when logic has already left the room. Critics saw nonsense. Disaster fans saw a giant screen roller coaster. And sometimes, that is exactly what a movie like this is supposed to be. Number 3, Sharknado, 2013. Let's be honest with ourselves. You didn't watch Sharknado because you thought it would be good. You watched it because someone said, "Sharks in a tornado," and your brain short-circuited. This sci-fi original movie premiered in 2013 to almost zero fanfare. Then Twitter exploded. Suddenly, everyone was talking about the movie where Ian Ziering from 90210 chainsaws a flying shark. Critics didn't even bother reviewing it seriously. But audiences? Audiences turned Sharknado into a cultural phenomenon. It spawned 5 sequels. It became a yearly event. It made Tara Reid a meme legend. Here's the secret. Making an intentionally dumb movie is harder than it looks. Most bad movies are just bad. Sharknado is bad on purpose. It knows exactly what it is. A movie about a tornado that picks up sharks from the ocean and drops them on Los Angeles. The sharks aren't even the real threat. The tornado is the threat. The sharks are just hailstones with fins and teeth. The dialogue is terrible. The acting is wooden. The special effects look like a video game from 2002. And that's the point. Sharknado delivers the perfect amount of knowing fun. It's tongue-in-cheek. It's self-aware. It's a movie that winked at the audience before winking was cool. Audiences didn't just love Sharknado later. They loved it immediately. They loved it ironically. Then they loved it unironically. Then they couldn't stop watching. That's the power of a truly stupid idea executed with genuine enthusiasm. Number 2. The Core, 2003. I'm about to defend one of the dumbest movies ever made. The Core arrived in 2003 with a premise so scientifically broken that actual NASA scientists wrote papers explaining why it was impossible. The Earth's core stopped spinning. The solution? Send Aaron Eckhart in a drill submarine to detonate nuclear bombs at the planet's center. Critics destroyed this movie. It has a 31% Rotten Tomatoes score. It was a box office disappointment. But here's the truth. The Core is a masterpiece of brain-off entertainment. It might be the most rewatchable disaster movie ever made. Why? Because it commits to its absurd premise with 100% sincerity. No winking at the camera. No ironic jokes. Every actor plays their ridiculous role like they're in a Shakespeare tragedy. Stanley Tucci chews every piece of scenery as a rock star scientist. Hilary Swank flies the drill submarine with genuine intensity, and the set pieces are genuinely tense. A runaway train through the Earth's mantle. A space shuttle landing on a dry riverbed in Los Angeles. A sacrifice scene that actually makes you emotional. The Core is widely considered awful, but that's because critics watched it with their brains turned on. Watch it with your brain turned off, and you'll discover something wonderful. The Core is sincere. It's heartfelt. It's sublimely stupid in the best possible way. Audiences discovered this on late-night cable. They fell in love with its ridiculous charm. I love the core. You might love the core too. Don't be ashamed. Number 1. Armageddon, 1998. What do you want from a disaster movie? Do you want scientific accuracy? Go watch a documentary. Do you want emotional depth? Read a novel? Do you want to be entertained? Then, you want Armageddon. Michael Bay's asteroid disaster epic was released in 1998, alongside Deep Impact. Critics preferred the serious one. They trashed Armageddon for being loud and stupid and impossible. Roger Ebert called it one of his most hated films. The movie holds a 43% critic score. But audiences? Audiences gave it a 73% and made it the highest-grossing film of the year. They watched it again and again. They quoted it. They cried at the ending. They still watch it today. Why? Because Armageddon understands something fundamental about disaster movies. They're not about realism. They're about emotion. Bruce Willis leads a team of roughneck oil drillers to land on an asteroid and blow it up before it destroys Earth. Ben Affleck and Liv Tyler fall in love. Willis makes the ultimate sacrifice. Aerosmith plays over the credits. Every beat lands. Every moment hits. And that final scene where Willis says goodbye to his daughter? It destroys people. Armageddon is not a good movie by traditional standards. It's a great movie by emotional standards. Audiences figured this out immediately. Critics took 20 years to come around. But now Armageddon is considered a classic because audiences were right all along. And the critics? The critics finally admitted they were wrong. So there you have it. 13 disaster movies that critics hated but audiences loved. Which one have you defended at a party? Which one made you cry when no one was watching? Drop it in the comments.